Divas, welcome back to the channel. This week, the long list for the National Book Awards Fiction Prize is being announced, and I wanted to do a little predictions video, yeah? I feel like I have a relatively nice handle on the National Book Award. I kind of have my finger on the pulse about, I think, what they're looking for. So I wanted to throw my hat in the ring into books that I thought should be on the list, could be on the list, that I'd like to see on the list. And all that to say, this could all be wrong. So the National Book Award for Fiction's long list consists of 10 titles. I am going to talk about 8 titles that I've read. Slight caveat, I am halfway through 2 of the 8. And then for the final 2 slots, I'm going to toss up like a list of maybe 5. I know, forgive me. But there's just like a lot of whisperings and talking around the 5 that I think it's worth including them. And I hope you will entertain me, yes? So I guess we're talking about 13 for a list of 10. I'm okay with that. I like to break the rules over here, yeah? Let's dive in. And I want to start with my first choice, which might be considered controversial depending on who you talk to, but 10 toes on the ground, I think that this book deserves a spot on the long list, and that is Bob the Drag Queen's Harriet Tubman Live in Concert. Okay, listen. I think that folks might get confused and think of this as like a celebrity book. I mean, fine. Listen, Bob has a following. Bob is a celebrity, right? With whatever definition we want to choose to pin to that word. But I loved it. And I think it also matches with some of the spirit of books that we have seen on the long list in the past. I think it's creative. I think it handles themes that we've seen before in a very innovative, unique way. I think that the queer elements are very interesting and very fascinating, which the National Book Award tends to like to give a nod to queer stories over the years anyways. Yeah, I think it's really well done, too. On top of all of those things, I think it's well written. And I think it's creative and unique and a fresh voice and a fresh take on, learning to love ourselves, right? Because ultimately, so this book, it imagines a world where figures from the past are dropped into present day. It sounds wackadoo crazy on paper, right? But Bob handles it brilliantly. So, and in this, we really focus on Harriet Tubman, but there are others. I think Cleopatra is also one of the figures of history that is just roaming the streets. And Harriet Tubman is putting on a hip-hop concert, and she employs our protagonist to help her produce this album and put it on tour. Through that process, Harriet Tubman leads our protagonist through the tumult and mazes of their mind and of their life to freedom, and that freedom is loving themselves. I think it's really beautifully done. I think that these wackadoo elements that on paper are like a big giant side eye are so successfully executed against. I would love this. I think it would be so special to see this on the long list. I think it's great. I would love it. There we go. And also this one I think is like basically a no-brainer. I've been yelling about this book since I cracked it. It's Audition by the diva, Miss Katie Kitamura. I am loving it. It's longlisted for the Booker. Occasionally they will have some overlap. I hope that it makes, this is a quick side note, that it makes the shortlist for the Booker, because I'm really dying to reread it. And right now with my current reading schedule, I don't have time to sit down and do a reread yet. So I hope it makes the shortlist so I can give myself a solid excuse for rereading it. It What is it about? It's about a woman who is an actress and she is aging, and it focuses a lot on the themes of self and the roles we play in life, as well as mental health. Yeah. There is a huge narrative shift in the middle. And I was going back and forth in the not like back and forth, but I was discussing with someone, I think in the comments on one of these platforms, about this title. And the individual said that they didn't feel like they were having a conversation with the book, that they didn't feel like the book was like, it was a back and forth with the audience or them as the reader, right? And I don't think that that is the intention of the work. I think that the back and forth, the ping ponging, right? The conversation is between part one and part two. And actually, I don't know if it delineates itself as in terms of like part one and part two, but the sections. Oh, it does. Yeah. So the narrative shift happens at part two. And I think that the conversation is actually between those two parts. And I think when you approach it that way, the work just really cracks open. I would love to see it. I believe was Intimacies on the National Book Award, or was that the Booker? Fact update here. Yeah. So, she's obviously not a stranger to any of these prize lists. And I think that it would just be lovely to see. And lovely to see / I wouldn't be in any way surprised. I think I'll be more surprised if it's not on there. How about that? Yeah. All right. This next one, The Dream Hotel. And I've yapped about it on here a little bit. And I was critical of a certain plot element, which I'm dying to talk about, but it kind of gives away certain pieces of the book, and I don't, spoiling things on the internet is like not fun. That is like, so, I don't know, not my vibe. So I don't want to do that. But yes, I did take issue with one of the elements, or the way one of the plot elements was handled. However, I do like the work as a whole. And from all of this list that I have put together, I think this is the only work of like speculative fiction that I've included. And I think that they will, given everything that is going on right now, include a work of speculative fiction. So I feel pretty strongly that this one will find its way onto the list. Yes? Okay. Here is the next one. And I'm going to say it with my whole chest. Yes? We have not seen this diva on this long list in a hot minute. And that is Miss Joyce Carol Oates. And I think her book, Fox, would make perfect sense on the National Book Awards long list for their fiction prize. It really worked for me. I know I'm getting sly little DMs from folks that feel that it was maybe not their choice, their cup of tea, but it worked for me. I didn't mind the length. I thought it was, every page was there with purpose. I thought it was expertly edited. I feel like, and I think I've said this probably 10 times, but every time she would do something that I would roll my eyes at or side-eye her and be like, Joyce, is that how you're going to handle this? Wait 30 pages and she proves how dumb you are and how much smarter she is than you. And she's like, yeah, I'm doing this because of this. So why don't you just sit there and let me tell you a story? And a story she told us. Yes, it's great. It's great. And I would just love to see it on this list. I would. Ooh, I will say, I am predicting a couple honkers. One or two of these are super short. Or one of them is super short, but there are a couple honkers. I think we're going to see a honker. I think we're going to see at least one honker. And if I have my druthers, we'll see at least 2, if not 3. I know, I'm sorry. This next one, Good Girl. I enjoyed it. I know that it was in conversation for the Women's Prize. I think that it is also a very interesting, if we look at, the list that I have pulled together, I think it's an interesting, unique voice that is not represented in other aspects of this list. Also, she's young. I think the prize will love that. I also love that she's a woman of color. I think the prize will also love that. And I think that it gives like a youthful perspective of finding oneself in a different way of Harriet Tubman live in concert. Yeah. I think it does it in this really fascinating, unique, like drug-addled, youthful, like foreign way, right? Because I believe it's most of it is in Germany, if not all of it. I forget. So yeah, I think because of the rumblings for the Women's Prize, I know some other folks have like really held it in high esteem. I really enjoyed it, and I do think it's strong enough to hang out on this list with some of these other heavy hitters. I think it's really great. This next one, it is I'm including it because the genre is different. We don't have any of this genre here. I think it would be really great for the National Book Award to give a little nod to this genre. And in my defense, I am only halfway through. My understanding is the ending throws us a little bit of a little curvy curve, and I've had multiple people be in my comments like, oh my gosh, just finish this book already, Cole, because we want to discuss like what happens at the end, yeah? And that is The Buffalo Hunter. The New York Times is already whispering about it being one of its top 5 fiction books of the year, and what I've read of it, I love. I think it's really interesting. I think it's very well written. This is actually, full disclosure, my first Stephen Graham Jones. My understanding is very prolific. I would just love to see it. I love the Native American angle. My understanding is Stephen Graham Jones is Native American, yes? Fact checking here. And we have included some Native American authors in the past, and I've loved the nod. I've not loved the execution of the product, which is maybe a me thing, and that's fine. But I just didn't land. So I would love to see this. I also love this kind of like horror adjacent like genre here. It also feels just very literary. I would love to see it. I think it'd be very interesting inclusion. And listen, I think that this list I'm putting together so far is quite diverse and quite interesting. We've got like, I don't want to say genre, but form-bending audition. We've got Harriet Tubman live in concert, which is like kind of by a celebrity, and then like is I guess like speculative fiction, but just like reimagines things in a very interesting, creative way. We got Fox, which is much more like traditional from like a storied author in American history and like the fabric of American culture, right? We've got the Dream Hotel, speculative fiction, especially with all the madness going on right now. We've got this young voice from a woman of color talking about coming of age and learning to find herself and through just tumult. And then we've got this like horror novel from an indigenous person. And then we have a love story, The Loneliness of Sonia and Sunny. It's just a beautifully written love story. Again, this is the other one that I'm like halfway through. It's just beautiful. Yeah, it's beautifully written. It is engaging to me. I think that it's interestingly done. I don't want to give much away, but like, they're not like going on a date right at the jump. You know what I mean? Like it is a drawn out, in my opinion, well handled, like successfully drawn out love story. And where are we seeing that on the market? Not with capital L literature. You know what I'm saying? We're just not. And so I would love to see the nod. Would love to see the nod. And then we have the queen, the diva, Miss Tori Peters, and her masterpiece, Stag Dance. Are we going to riot in the streets if this one is not on the long list? Maybe. Will I be on the front lines? Probably. It is a novella and short stories, and it centers the trans experience through myriad lenses in all of the stories. I think it is just challenging. I think that it is evocative. I think that it is igniting in many ways. I really loved this work, and I think it should absolutely have a place on the long list. Okay, now we are getting to titles that I've not read. Okay, so some of these I'm going to be reading some of the descriptions that I've like cobbled together before this in preparation for this. So the next one is necessary fiction. It hopefully is on its way to me now. I have a book club at the end of the month that I'm supposed to have read this for, and I think I helped push for it. So fingers crossed it gets here in time. Otherwise, the library or we're just getting creative, yeah? But it is set in Lagos. It is by Elosa Osande. I believe I pronounced that correctly. I know their pronouns are they, them. And it is an audacious exploration of cross-generational queer life in Nigeria. Yes, please. These Nigerians can write. They can write. Across Lagos, one of Africa's largest urban areas and one of the world's most dynamic cities, Osunde's characters seek out love for self and their chosen partners, even as they risk ruining relationships with parents, spouses, family, and friends. These characters grapple with desire, fear, time, death, and God, forming and breaking unexpected connections in the process, unveiling how they know each other, have loved each other, and had their hearts broken in that pursuit as they work to establish themselves in the city's lively worlds of art, music, entertainment, and creative commerce. We meet their collective and individual attempts to reckon with the necessary fiction they carry for survival. Hello, people. Like, what more can you want? I hear that there are just a robust amount of characters in this. I think that there is some sort of character map or like family tree situation, I think, at the beginning of the book. I am on the edge of my seat. I cannot wait. I believe, we'll fact check this, that is a short story collection, which the National Book Award tends to do. Would they consider Stagnance a short story collection? Maybe. Would they? Could they? Should they include both? Not no, right? The next one up is The Slip. It has recently come onto my radar, and I think I may be picking this up regardless of whether or not it makes it onto the long list. It is set in Austin, Texas in the 90s, and as someone who is from the United States of Texas, I'm super intrigued to see how Lucas Schaefer tackles that. Yes, Austin is a little different than, I grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, so, we'll see, but I'm intrigued. My understanding is that it's, Nathaniel is one of our main characters. I think we follow two. And he's never felt comfortable in his own skin, but he starts to study under this Haitian boxer. And then one night he just vanishes, leaving no trace. Across town, we have this character named Charles, who now goes by X, and they're undergoing some sort of teenage transformation, trolling the phone sex hotline that their mother works, but seeking an outlet for everything that feels wrong about their body, looking for intimacy and acceptance in a culture that denies them both. Intrigued. You know what I'm saying? This was a little different where they were not different, but this was a little interesting where it then gave this blurb that was more than a decade later, Nathaniel's uncle receives a shocking tip, propelling him to open his own investigation into his nephew's disappearance. I mean, you had to wait a decade? You know what I'm saying? And maybe, listen, I'm sure that the family does whatever, but that was a little odd to me. I was like, huh. So we'll see, but it says The Slip is an audacious, daring look at sex and race in America that builds to an unforgettable conclusion in the center of the ring. Sign me up. Also, I love that multiple of these books are being labeled as audacious. We have Necessary Fiction as audacious, and then we now have The Slip as audacious. Just give me an audacious fall. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I am super drawn in by that. I think also because of this, and it's unclear, but it also feels very clear that this Charles person is exploring some sort of queerness. And queerness in Texas in the 90s is a super interesting, wild place exploration time. Yeah. Having lived that. Also fascinating that more than a decade later, Nathaniel's Uncle Bob, so that tells me too, we were starting, or I think in the late 90s, and then we're going to at least 2008, if not like into the 12s, right? Or 2012. I don't made that up. Like I just assumed like 4 years is like more than 10, so like more than a decade, which is interesting. And I wonder too, like I'm hoping we bring Charles with us, and like what is that evolution like? And so all that to say, this is a small advertisement, I guess, for the slip, but I would love to see that on the longest as well for all of these reasons. I'm hearing amazing things about it. I cannot wait. I'm gonna read it, I think, regardless. Sooner if it's on the long list, later if it's not. And this next one is Isola by Allegra Goodman. I will say, I have heard mixed things, but by people that I respect, I have heard a lot of like championing. Yeah. So our protagonist is like accused of betrayal, and she is brutally punished and abandoned on a small island. Like once this child of privilege who dressed in gowns and laced pearls in her hair finds herself at the mercy of nature, discovering a faith she'd never before needed. And apparently it's inspired by like real life events of this like 16th century heroine. So it says it's a timeless story of a woman fighting for survival. That is a story that is missing from this long list that I've put together. So for that, it feels like that's the hole it might be filling. You know what I mean? I will say, it's like a back and forth again, but folks I really respect have really championed its success on the page. So I hope it gets longlisted, so I will read it. I think this one was also on the New York Times long list, basically, for their top 5 fiction books of the year. Which, what does that list hold? Who's to say? I love talking about it every year. I think it's interesting. I also love that I tend to agree, like, wholeheartedly, whole chest, like 3 of them, and then 2 of them make me just like irate. So it's always interesting. Like, love Buffalo Hunter Hunter. Is Isola one of the 2 that I might disagree with? Like, who knows? But I think it's interesting, and I like the story. 30,000 Foot View is like cool. Like, yeah, let's hear about her survival. Yeah, especially if it can be paired with like some of these like livelier stories, right? Like if we're reading about the slip and like we end in some, it implies that we're ending in some fight for survival in a boxing ring. Like, yeah, it might be nice to then also pair that with a more quiet story, potentially, of a woman fighting for survival against nature and like coming into her own and like fortifying her strength as a woman. Like, that's beautiful and might be, again, like a nice juxtaposition. Okay, this next one. If I was a betting man, I would bet that this one would be on there. I want to just give a little bit of context. The reason why I'm choosing to discuss 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them for these final 2 slots is only because I think that there are so many directions that these could go, and I hate when people talk about books online that they have not read with like little to no substantiation. Yeah, to me it would just feel a little silly to take these 5 that I think have like grounds to be on the list and just be like, well, these are the 2 I'm choosing, even though I have not read them all. So anyways, I hope you all kind of forgive me that fungibility with these final 2, because I think that there are reasons that all of them could be on there. And this one is The Sisters by Kamiri. My understanding is this is the first novel this author has written in English. All of his other works have been translated from Swedish. Fact checking. The Sisters is allegedly an epic family saga spanning several continents. It is an irresistible novel about alienation and escape, about the passage of time, but above all about our dreams and our inevitable collision with reality. Sign me up. And then this was what like made me want to go out and like buy the book. Narrated in 6 parts, each spanning a period ranging from a year to a day to a single minute. I'm sorry. What? Immediately, yes. Especially because I'm hearing great praise about it, and this author this is one of the reasons I included it too. They were shortlisted for the translated prize in 2020. So to me, this feels very much like a narrative, yeah, for the award itself. Not even for it to win, but for it to now, this author's first work, originally written in English, to also make it onto the long list. It feels very like affirming for both the author and the prize itself. You know what I'm saying? And like, again, and if does that well, oh my gosh, an author to write an entire part about a minute? Like, how did they do that? I want to see that. You know what I'm saying? I want to see that. That feels so interesting to me. So interesting to me. Yeah. It's a vivid family saga of the highest order, an addictively entertaining tour de force. Please, sign me up. So, like, that's another one that I think I'm going to read. It is also a hunker. The Sisters is a hunker, and I believe The Slip is also a hunker and a half. And listen, maybe this will be my fall of the hunkers, because I think too, for my October, I think Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil is making its way on there. I think it'll be an easier read, but it's a hunker and a half. I gotta finish The Loneliness of Sonia and Sunny actually this weekend. Fingers crossed. But all of that is secondary to the final title that I am predicting as a possible contender for these final two slots. And that is Dogs. Okay. This top section, I think, says it best. It's a singular, devastating debut novel. Dogs traces the fallout of one catastrophic night in the lives of 5 high school wrestlers, asking what can survive in the blast radius of latent trauma and violence. Yes. Yes. I made friends with a dear fellow named Rick on Instagram, and we ran into each other in P-Town, I think last year. He's so kind, and we were able to get back together in P-Town this year. I think we both, our houses go the same week, and we sat and we had lovely coffee, and he was so kind to bring me just a bag of books. I'm going to do a video haul on here about all of those books that he gifted me, and then also I got a few from a used bookstore, so we'll do a whole like P-Town haul. It should be super fun. But he loved this book. And this was actually, I think, the impetus for him to bring me any books at all. He was like, I love this book so much and you have to read it. I'm going to send it to you. And then he was like, no, I'll just give it to you in P-Town. And then he put together this lovely collection of books. And I cannot wait to read them. Cannot wait to talk to you all about them. And it really edged Dogs up in my consideration prediction for these final two slots in the National Book Award long list for their fiction prize. So yeah, those are my thoughts. You know what I'm saying? There are a lot of them. They come aplenty, but I think that this is, at least I think, I put a lot of thought into it. Now, again, all of this could be wrong. I could be wrong on all the 13, was that the total number of books that we talked about? On all of them. That said, I do think we are going to see some of these on the long list, and I'm excited to see which ones. I hope that it's many of them, because I truly love, of the ones I've read that I mentioned here, I truly loved them all in their own different, unique ways, right? So yeah, I am excited to hear on Friday what the long list is going to be, and then we'll be back here to chat about them, and it depends on what the long list is. I may try to read it. I have committed, and I'm almost done, and I think I'm going to be able to do it, to read the entire long list for the Booker before they announce the short list. It might be a little, I might need a little break to do that for the National Book Award and might instead like read some of my favorites that I've not read yet and then read the rest of the shortlist. We'll see. I think it also depends on how many of these honkers are on there, right? Because if they put both the Slip and the Sisters on here, that might be, you know what I'm saying? So we'll see. But yeah, but I will sit with that and make a decision once I hear the long list. And yeah, but we will chat about that prize as it progresses. And I hope y'all had a good time. I had a good time with this. This one was fun. The Booker, to me, I feel like we got the multiple countries. There's a lot going on. I think that like the things they consider there are a little trickier to like predict. Where I think this one is a little bit easier. That said, they could also, and probably will, pull a little surprise, maybe sneak attack, and throw something in there that no one is talking about, which wouldn't that be fun? Yeah? Let me know in the comments which ones you all would love to see on the National Book Award long list. Are there any ones here that I've talked about that you would love to see? Do y'all have a list y'all would love to see? Also, if I mentioned these 5 that I haven't read, and y'all loved or hated them, let me know, right? Especially if you've read The Slip or The Sisters, because they're chonkers, and I've already put my feelers out to see who in my like orbit has read them before I double down and make a commitment. So let me know, and otherwise we will be back next week with more booktube tomfoolery. Until then.